He still takes the field? Yep. Love it. Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W, so gotta be around the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby! Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the best car here, bud. Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job. Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend. What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark, and welcome to Saturday night. We're going to try to make this quick and short because somebody decided they would want to have a live broadcast tonight at 10 o'clock too. So we'll try to make this as quick as possible and try to get through it, but I doubt, since most nights it's taking me 2 hours to get through, that I understand if you end up leaving. Wyatt, what's going on, buddy? If you're not interested in watching the president speak, then stick around. We'll talk racing for the next hour and a half, 2 hours. Gateway, or Pocono, sorry, the Great American Gateway 400. But before we get to Pocono, let's go back down south to Mexico, where, as expected, SVG decided to dominate the field. Yeah, I kind of saw that one coming. It was a little interesting there for a little bit. I almost thought Ty Gibbs was going to potentially get his first win. He was definitely in place until Carson Chaos Hocevar decided to spin and not be able to get his... Wyatt says, I'd rather watch you. Maybe I'll have... Yeah. Either way, I can also understand. Mine will be there and available on YouTube to watch whenever you need to watch it. But I guess so will President Trump. So either way, I appreciate you tuning in for the short period of time that I do have you. If you stick around, great. If not, it'll be there for replay. But SVG dominating Ty Gibbs, almost getting that elusive first victory. Good run by him. And can Kyle Spinny Bush not wreck my entire lineups? I had way too much Larson. I had way too much Bush. You know, with his comments of like, yeah, this is one of the best cars I've had in a long time. I'm super excited to go racing, and then he destroys, I think, 71% of my lineups last week. It was not a good week. I mean, I was pretty much correct with a lot of my picks, except for Larson and a couple others. I think it was Zane that ended up getting in that mess also. But yeah, it was a rough one. It was a good race to watch, but my lineups went to heck in a handbasket real fast. Either way, let's take a look at what the optimal lineups did look like from... Oops, misspelling. Mexico. 100 lap race, SVG leading 60% or 60 laps in that race. Pretty dominant fashion. How many? Ty Gibbs led 18. So yeah, definitely a dominator by SVG, but saw that coming. I think he won by 15.5 or 16 seconds. Largest margin of victory we'd seen in a very, very long time. That's what SVG does, and that's why he was, I think, only plus 250 at the start of the race in the betting market. So, we potentially have another setup just like that for this week, though. The one guy who decides to take maternity leave and go to spend some time with his wife and children, which I don't blame him. I would have done the same thing. Got a week off and is now well rested for his most dominant track as we head to Pocono and Denny Hamlin. But Christopher Bell starting 31st, coming back to finish in second. Kind of saw that one being a very, very good PD play. Alex Bowman from 29th to 4th. I miscalled that one. I he even on social media and interviews and everything else was saying he wasn't real sure if he was going to be able to make the whole race, and then he goes out and finishes in 4th, and was actually very, very fast all day long. So I missed the Alex Bowman. If you faded off of Alex Bowman because of me, I very much apologize. John Hunter Nemechek, I thought that was going to be an okay place differential play starting in 32nd. The Legacy Motor Club has definitely had much better speed this year, and I just figured that was probably not... that was going to be an easy place differential play. Not as easy as Christopher Bell, but I thought it was going to be a pretty good PD play. William Byron from 27th to 9th, thought that was a decent play. He's pretty good on road courses. The real unexpected one that I completely missed was Cole Custer, and I think pretty much most of the field. I think he was like 4% owned or something. He was definitely bottom of the barrel. He would have been anybody's sleeper pick if they had him in any lineups at all. Other drivers, Chase Elliott, who's really good at road courses, but still not superb with SVG and some of those. And he just hasn't quite had the speed as in the next-gen era. Chase Briscoe, Bubba Wallace, Chris Buescher. Good for Bubba Wallace getting that 12th place finish. He's really starting to show that he's starting to figure out road courses. Now, I don't think he'll ever be at the caliber of an SVG or Larson or Elliott, but a good solid 12th place finish for him. Chris Buescher continually finishing in the top 10, just barely. Michael McDowell, thought that was a good play. Thought he might have a chance to actually even win that race. He was super happy with his car. Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, and Ryan Truex from 36th to 23rd rounds out that grouping. Victorious Nemechek and Custer on the rise in the past 3 races somehow. Nemechek's not the big surprise. Custer is definitely the big surprise. Single car team. With a not super well funded pit crew. Definitely kind of doing their thing. Why did people expect Suarez to contend in Mexico? Well, I mean, Suarez, he knows that track. He won the day prior. He's from Mexico, so he was the crowd favorite. Anytime you have that kind of momentum, it's almost like getting a win. His win for the Xfinity race, coming from last to first, definitely kind of showed that he knew and understood that track. And I don't see why that was a huge surprise on why he was. Was it because he was his home race? Yeah, and traditionally good at road courses. Yeah, I didn't know he was good at road courses. Yeah, well, he won at Sonoma 2 or 3 years ago, and it's been a little hit or miss since then. And you just kind of expect, since he won the race prior, that he potentially could have a pretty good day, and he did lead a lap or two through some of the pit cycles. What's up, Family Man? Having to have both 5K guys is what hurt you. Yep, kind of hurt me too. Lineup construction is so important in that. Yeah, I mean, if I had to go do it all over again, I'm still not sure I would have had much Cole Custer. I mean, starting in 26th, I would have thought maybe the best he would have gone and finished was, 15th at best. But he was contending in the top 10 for a lot of that race. So good for Cole Custer. I'm happy for him, but it really, between that and Kyle Busch wrecking 70% of my lineups, definitely really, really hurt. So, sometimes you go deep and hard and heavy on a driver, and if that driver does well, you're going to have a great day. If they end up getting taken out, you're going to have a really, really crappy day. So it is what it is. That's why we luckily have 1 week to wait, and we get back to it, and this is back to it. So we are now headed to Pocono for the Great American Getaway 400. And you know what's crazy is Pocono lines up almost all these mile and a half, 2 mile. I mean, I know this is a 2.5 mile track, but it's not really a drafting track because it's so flat. But these large ovals or I don't know, triangles really play into this next gen car really, really well. And I think we're going to be in store for a very good race. The other real problem with Pocono in this next gen car is going to be because the next gen car is so rigid and it does not handle bumps very well. And if you go back and watch any of the practice, especially the very beginning of practice, I can't remember whose. I think they had a front bumper cam of Denny Hamlin, and the car was literally just bouncing almost the entire racetrack. So with that being said, watch for a lot of spinners by people getting on the throttle just a tick too soon, and that's all it's going to take. I mean, the bumps were causing the trucks to wreck, and they were causing the Xfinity cars to wreck today. And they're typically pretty stable over the bumps at most tracks. So if that's the case, and these bumps have really started to kind of form more over the last year, which is a little surprising that we've had this much difference between this year and last year, but it seems to be a lot more bumpy. So with that being said, people like Kyle Busch could be in for an extremely long day. You know, Kyle Larson could be put in the same boat. He always runs his car right on that ragged edge, and all it's going to take is one misstep in the bumpy areas, and they're going sideways. Andrew, welcome. Nice finish in the 20 max marks. So close, man. Yeah, it was from. Are you talking about from today's race? Yeah, I finished in second in the Chrome Horn, or which one did I finish second in? It was either the Chrome Horn or the dollar. Either way, yeah, it was really, really close. It was a good race. I finally, hopefully, I've turned the corner because it's been a rough start to the summer for my Draftkings. Luckily enough, I had some really, really good wins earlier in the year, and luckily enough, we're headed to a super speedway next week where typically things turn around for me. So, but either way, I ended up having a decent truck race last night, and then had a pretty decent Xfinity race, both positive on the dollars. So I will take that as a win. Either way, Pocono, it is a 2.5 mile triangle, 3 turns. 14 degrees, 8 degrees, and 6 degrees. 8 degrees and 6 degrees is literally almost less banking than a lot of the racetracks straightaways. It's crazy how little banking is at this track. This race length is 160 laps or 400 miles. Dominator points will be 112. Dominator points will be a very small concern. Not taking away from a potential dominator, but it's not something you want to build your lineup around. You will, if you pull the dominator, more than likely you're going to pull the winner. If somebody happens to dominate this race and has a slight issue towards the end and finishes 25th, it just costs them too much. There's not enough dominator points to make up. At least, especially in the truck and Xfinity, which were 80 and 100 laps. 160, there's a little bit more wiggle room, but you're going to have to literally lead 100 laps for a dominator to really make a difference. And if that's the case, more than likely they're going to win the race also. So, dominator points will not be something I really factor in. I'm really looking for place differential is going to be large and also finishing in the top 10. Track comparisons. There's really only one other track to compare to Pocono, and it's Indy, which is also 2.5 miles, but it's also just as flat and just as fast going into the corner entry speed is about the same. So when we're kind of looking, those two tracks are the only two that really share the same characteristics. You can look at New Hampshire. It's very flat, but the corners are so sweeping that you'll carry a lot of corner entry speed, but you have to stay off throttle for so long through New Hampshire, you don't have a huge head of steam coming down the straightaways. So the comparison to it is it's flat. Nashville, not really. It's concrete. It's banked. There's nothing really else like Indy and Pocono. So when we're really comparing, those are really the only two tracks. And since we only run once a year at both of them, and we only started running back on the full course oval at Indy last year, we don't have a whole lot of data when it comes to the next gen era and this large, flat, banked type of track. So there are some comparisons, but there's really nothing like Pocono and Indy. With that being said, let's look at optimal lineups from the past 3 years at Pocono and last year at Indy, since we do have that information. Last year, Ryan Blaney finished in first, led 44 laps, and got 72.9 points. We're looking through, this is kind of the part of the show where you kind of want to pay attention to what DraftKings point total do we need to get to potentially make optimal lineup and the price tag. We're paying attention to who the drivers are, but it's really what are these numbers and how do the drivers, when we get to the driver by driver breakdown, actually fall into this placement. So this is kind of where this really comes into play. Yeah, it's important to kind of look to see if we have repeat guys, but as you can see, looking down through here, it doesn't repeat from 2024 to 2023. At least I don't see anybody that is duplicate there. So yeah, but the same type of thing. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of laps led. We're in the 50 to 60 ballpark. Here it's mid 40s to 50s with a 72.9. Nobody over $10,000 here. We did have two drivers here over 10,000, which pushed probably the optimal lineup down into the more the value range, and that's something to kind of take into consideration. And then I did do Pocono 2021 as a optimal lineup, but you can easily maybe I'll pull up the 2024 Indy race to kind of show you what that looks like also. But Pocono of 2022, next gen era, same type of thing. Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, they also got busted for manipulating their bumpers, so they actually did not finish 1-2. They ended up finishing 36th and 37th or 37th, 38th. But since DraftKings pays out before those penalties come out, they are still listed as first and second. So either way, once again, it's much more place differentials. Like I said, you could even take away some of these 63 laps led, which ends up being like 10 points, and Kyle Busch is going to have 61 points. He's still going to be in the optimal lineup, regardless of all the laps led, starting in second, finishing in second. And then 2021, I mean, kind of the same thing, and that's why I kind of left it here. It's only 140 laps, but no real dominator. We don't have super high price or super high point potential because of the lack of laps that we run. So this is much more, it's place differential, its value, and its finishes. We don't have a whole lot of dominator to worry about. And that kind of shows up in our point breakdown. I did have the Indy here, but the point breakdown on where points are coming from compared to starting positions and the top 15 point total, what the bottom of the barrel of that point total is, which is about 33.3. So that's going to be the minimum point total that we want to potentially put into our lineups as we're building them. And as we can see, we don't have a whole lot of guys that are starting 31st or worst, and that's kind of been the case recently. Much more in the 20s, the teens, and it's about evenly dispersed. It's actually almost 6 drivers in the top 10, 3 drivers 11 through 20, and almost 5 drivers 21 through 30. So it seems to be kind of the sweet spot for for finishing position and potential little bit of dominator is that starting in the top 10, and then 21 through 30 seems to be kind of the next sweet spot to build from. It's not always the case, and we do have a lot of interesting things that happened during practice and qualifying today that definitely put some people that have potential towards the back, even though we're not real sure how fast they may or may not be, because a lot of people didn't do any or very many practice laps because of issues. So it'll be interesting. All right, our driver by driver breakdown. Welcome back, Denny Hamlin. His 1 week hiatus from NASCAR for his maternity leave or paternity leave. I don't even know what you call it. But he stayed at home, hung out with his new baby boy. So, in 20 or 18 years, we'll have whatever baby boy Hamlin is out on the racetrack, I'm sure. But Denny Hamlin, priced at $11,000 in Draftkings. The tracks we are comparing to, like I said before, the 3 races at Pocono, the one from Indy, and I did throw in the one from New Hampshire last year. There are more laps at the New Hampshire race, and it kind of skews the point total a little bit. But like I said, we didn't have a whole lot of tracks to compare to, especially the next gen era, so I threw New Hampshire in. This line here equates to what this is here. So out of those 5 races, Denny Hamlin has 2 wins, 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 3 top 20s. So either he does really well and finishes in the top 5 or wins, or has a really bad day. 39.3 DraftKings average for those 5 races, a 12th place average finish, and an average running position of 7.1. He finished second in this race at Pocono last year, 2024. Denny Hamlin has 34 total starts at the Tricky Triangle with 7 wins. Leads the pack of active drivers, and I think if he wins one more, he will lead everyone, including retired drivers. And out of those 34 total starts, 16 top 5s, 23 top 10s, 28 top 20s, and a 10.7 average finish for those 34 starts. Very, very, very good track for Denny Hamlin. And then he goes out and takes the pole spot away. And that's very typical for what Denny Hamlin does at Pocono. And it is one of the few races and a few racetrack driver combinations that if this particular driver gets the pole, I probably will not fade off of Denny Hamlin because of that. Now, he's probably also going to be pretty decently owned, unless they have a mechanical issue or damage. He will finish more likely in the top 5. That's just what it is. And, losing a couple points if you go from first to 4th at the finish is not too extreme. If he finishes 20th, it doesn't matter how many laps he's going to lead. He's not going to be in the optimal, especially at a price tag of $11,000. His practice speeds were about what Denny Hamlin does. It's 29th in a single lap, 19th in a 5-lap consecutive run. Because this track is so large, they don't really get to do long runs. It's a 2.5 mile track. It takes almost a minute to get around, 50 some odd seconds. But if you equate that out, even if you were to start at the very start of practice and run every lap possible, you might get to 27, 28 laps. But typically you're coming in, making an adjustment, and going back out. And that's probably, I don't know, Denny Hamlin probably just ran 22 laps and said, okay, my car's good, I'm ready to go race. Bump up all the pressures and let me go qualify. All right, so the timing and scoring from practice. Denny Hamlin is the car since he did get the pole. He was not super fast in practice, but he was very consistent across the average. He is the constant variable when we're looking at all the other drivers. And William Byron, who had one of the fastest cars in practice, probably may have challenged Denny Hamlin for the pole, decided to turn it in the tunnel turn and wreck his car. So have not heard a full report yet on whether that car is going to be repairable. Even if it does, he's going to go from 31st to 37th on the start. Not a big deal. If he was going to go from top 10 to 37th, that's a little bit bigger deal. Track position does play a little bit of a key to this track, but either way, William Byron was extremely fast in practice. He could have easily been the constant variable that we looked at for each driver, but I decided to go with Denny Hamlin since he did have the pole, and he is really good at this track. So, if we look at our fun little calculator, what does Denny Hamlin need to do to, and it really needs to be about 55 points for $11,000, and yeah, plus 35, give or take, to be in that top 15. So what does Denny Hamlin need to do or not need to do to kind of get there? Since he does have the pole, the stages for this race are going to be 30 laps, 65 laps, and 65 laps. So 30 laps is the short run, very quick. They will not need to pit unless they want to potentially get track position. But if we see any type of caution, we're going to see some definite strategies getting played at any point in time. If you can literally get a couple extra gallons of fuel in your car after 3 or 4 laps, they'll come in and get fuel. Tire wear in the first stage probably will not be a major factor, and I don't think it'll be much of a real factor anyways over the course of the long run, even though it will be extremely hot tomorrow in Pocono. I think the heat index is supposed to be like 94 or 95, which is very, very hot for Pocono. It's way up in the mountains in Pennsylvania. Not that these drivers are not easily capable of handling that type of heat for long periods of time. They are. But the tires do have a tendency to wear a little bit differently. And since we already have a bumpy track, once that tire wear starts to come in and play, it could potentially start to loosen up that car more than they want to. Now, the crew chiefs are really good. They'll make the adjustments, but there are a few cars who didn't get a chance to run very many laps in practice. So we could see some interesting things at the start of this race. Either way, Denny Hamlin, $11,000 starting from the pole. His average finish is 12th. Well, I'm going under the impression that Denny Hamlin's so good here, he's going to start in first and finish in first. So the calculator here is already set up, starting in first, finishing in first. His average fast laps is 15th, or 15 laps. His fast laps is 15, and his high on fast laps is 19. So let's just go on the lower end and go with the average at 15. His average laps led is 25, and his high is 37. So 40 is probably a little much. I didn't get a chance to look when I did this on what the first stage was. So first stage is 30. So let's say he can go lead the first 30 laps of this race, and he doesn't see the lead again. And he falls to, let's say, 4th. Well, that's 51.25. That's going to be real close on the optimal. So Denny Hamlin's going to need to finish second or better and lead 30 laps. More than likely, he's going to potentially lead more than that. He's got the best pit selection. He'll start from the pole. You know, this is taking Denny Hamlin is, you might, if you're going to put Denny Hamlin in your lineups, you probably might as well go over to whatever your favorite sports book is and take Denny Hamlin either for a win, a top 3, or a top 5, and bet the same amount of money. Because that's literally what we're pretty much saying, is Denny Hamlin's going to get a top 3 and lead a lot of laps. But the same thing was going to be said about SVG. If you put SVG in your lineups last week, it was literally, you thought that SVG was going to win that race. Hands down. Now, so Denny Hamlin at Pocono is like SVG at a road course. Yeah. Honestly. He's got 7 wins. His average top 20 is, what did I say it was? 28 of 34 is in the top 20. 23 out of 34 in the top 10. 16 out of 34, so half in the top 5. So yeah, and he's starting from the pole. Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what Benjamin said. Denny Hamlin at Pocono is like SVG at a road course. It's just he's got the place figured out. Now, just like I said about SVG, anything can happen. You get a flat tire, you get a speeding penalty, you get somebody who's going to dive into corner 1 and take you out, and that's pretty much done for. So that's the risk of playing DFS and NASCAR. All it takes is one buffoon, Bush, to ruin a lot of lineups. Ryan Blaney, 10,700, starting in the 20th position, is our next driver. I will not go into full detail like I did with Denny. With all these other drivers, we'll cover the kind of the highlights of it. But starting in 20th, we've got some place differential here. He practiced in 8th and single lap. 5th and 5 lap. And he has an average finish of 18.8 with a 9.7 average running position, which is kind of important to remember, which means he has run well and had a couple of issues here and there on the tracks that we're comparing to. He did win this race last year at Pocono and should be very, very good. 11 of 14 starts, he's finished in the top 20. And he does have 2 wins out of his 14 total starts with a 12.9 average finish. So pretty good. All in all, I would say that starting in 20th, he should easily get to the top 10, if not a top 5. Could even vie for another win. Remember, Penske and Blaney in particular are extremely good with long run speed and tire management and fuel management. And all of those could easily come into play for tomorrow's race. Ryan Blaney on the short run, looks like he had a little bit of a hiccup here. There was a caution, I think, during one of the practice sessions. I was building my Xfinity lineups while watching practice and qualifying. So I'm not exactly sure what the spike was, or if he just maybe slipped, made a mistake, whatever, I'm not sure. But he was much faster than Denny Hamlin throughout the first 15 laps, and after that slip, he came back and he was just as fast, if not slightly faster than Denny Hamlin. So Ryan Blaney could easily, if he can get up to Denny Hamlin, could give Denny Hamlin a run for his money. So I did definitely like the Ryan Blaney play starting in 20th, but guess what? That's not very sneaky. A lot of people are going to like this play. You could easily pair him with Denny Hamlin, and he probably will get paired with Denny Hamlin. Now, the problem is, the next character we're going to talk about in a minute, Kyle Larson's kind of in the same boat. But let's finish up with Ryan Blaney and see where does he need to finish. It's 55 points. I did not adjust this earlier, sorry. I changed this because I save all these PowerPoints, so I can go back and look at them later. Ryan, starting in 20th, his average finish is 19th, but because of his practice speeds and him finishing in first last year, I'm going to think that he's going to be able to get up into the top 5. So let's not even go to third. And let's say he does lead some laps, because I think there's a potential for the end of stage 2 for some of these guys to play some track positions and maybe get some laps led that might be, or somebody pits a little bit early. Ryan Blaney could run long. So I think there's a potential for Ryan Blaney to get some laps led, even if he doesn't win the race. But let's say he goes to 5th. I mean, it's still plenty if he leads the 10 and has 15 fast laps. He can even probably fall almost to 10th. 8th or 9th is kind of the sweet spot for him to still probably make the optimal lineup, which is, I think, very easily to be done with Ryan Blaney. I said, if we go back and look at his average running position, it's 9.7. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Oh, that's doing that. Yeah, 9.7 is his average running position. Well, if all we need to do is get him to 9th, and he's going to have 55 points, and if we remember in the optimal lineups, that puts him smack dab right in the middle of an optimal lineup run. If he's not in the optimal lineup, he will have been too expensive to fit in the optimal lineup, which means if you still would have had him and let's say it was Denny Hamlin who ended up with 71 points or something, or let's say Denny Hamlin has 56 points. Well, Denny Hamlin would bump Ryan Blaney. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden you had a bad day because you had Ryan Blaney and not Denny Hamlin. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I think Ryan Blaney is easily playable. I think he's easily playable with Denny Hamlin. The problem is if you start to try to fit in our next driver also, you now are starting to run into maybe some salary cap issues. 10,500 for Kyle Larson starting in 24th. And most of my lineups that did really well in the truck race and in the Xfinity race were having only one driver that was starting in the top 5. And then the rest of my drivers were 12th to 30 something. Yeah, I took practice speeds and decided who I thought was really good in practice, and if they missed a little bit in qualifying, showed me that they had a good chance to make a place differential, and then it's just a luck of the draw. But either way, Kyle Larson, 10,500 starting from 24th. I mean, absolutely is in play for a place differential. Now, there is a little bit of a concern that pretty much ever since I think it was Kansas where he ended up dominating that race. And then he really started to focus more in on his Indy Coke double duty race day on Memorial Day. That Larson just really has not been the same in the Cup Series. He's been a little bit off. Now, the tracks that we've been to don't necessarily favor him, and yet I can't take away what Kyle Busch did for Kyle Larson, but it did happen, and it ruined a lot of lineups. So it still goes into the scoring book as, you know, next to last finish, or next to last. Either way, I mean, he still had the fastest lap of the race. They literally repaired the car to a point to where it was fast enough to go out and run the fastest lap in the race. So Kyle Larson's, I think Kyle Larson's going to be fine. I think he's had a string of bad luck. He's not very good at Nashville, and he even said that this, you know, Nashville's just not his best track. You know, they'll grind it out and get a good finish, but at least if we're looking at finishing positions, Kyle Larson has not had the best month of June. So hopefully things will turn around, and maybe they turn around tomorrow at Pocono. He was 18th in single lap, 16th in 5-lap consecutive average. He's got one win, and that was at the Indy race last year. He's had good runs at Pocono. In fact, one of the runs, Denny Hamlin decided to kind of pay Kyle Larson back a little bit. And Denny's paid a lot of people back at Pocono, but Denny Hamlin's good enough to pay people back at Pocono. But he's got an average finish of 9th for these 5 races. And at 17 total races, he's never won Pocono. But once again, it's kind of like Ryan Blaney. I don't need Kyle Larson to go win. I need Kyle Larson to go get a 8th or 9th place finish. In fact, he may even be able to fall to 10th. But his practice speeds, and honestly, look a lot like Ryan Blaney's. That there's this one hiccup right in here. He also, if you watch practice, probably for a 5 or 6 lap run towards the end, he literally just followed Joey Logano around to see what the aero blocking was going to do to his car and how to potentially look at how to make adjustments to help with that aero blocking. So just kind of keep that in mind also. But once again, 24th average finish of 9th. You know, I put 5th in here just as a starting point, and that's, I mean, we don't need him to get 67 points. We need that 55 to 60 point range. So let's take his average finish of 9th, and let's say he doesn't lead any laps. Starting in 24th, it might be a little on the tough side, but has 15 fast laps. I mean, that's 56.75. You could even take some of these away and go down to 7. What does that do? 53.15. So we would need to finish 8th with only 7 fast laps, and he doesn't even need to lead a lap. So I think Kyle Larson's definitely in play. Ryan Blaney's definitely in play. And I think you pair them. I think you pair those two up with a potential like Denny Hamlin. Now, once again, you've eaten up $3,100 of your salary cap. You're now looking at spending about an average of $6,300 or $6,400 per driver for the other three. And you can adjust that a little bit by taking a Rally Herbst that might be 5,100, and then you can get some others. But we'll get to the cheaper guys and maybe decent plays at the bottom. If anyone says, with Blaney, Larson, and Byron all being PD plays, say all of them finish top 10, how do you think that would correlate to how we build lineups tomorrow? Or close to all being top 10. All of them easily could be potentially top 10. They all have the ability and speed at Pocono to do that. I mean, that definitely takes... To get that to fit, you're definitely going to have to take Larson out of the picture. In fact, let me pull up DraftKings and we can just we'll put in a couple of fake lineups and see how expensive or inexpensive we can go. Oops. All right. So Blaney, Larson, not Bell, Byron. Yeah, so we've got a 20th, a 24th, and a 31st. Well, we definitely probably cannot play. Yeah, you can't play a Denny Hamlin. You only have $7,400 left. So one of the four are going to have to be left out. So let's leave Hamlin out. And if we think they all make it to a top 10, but let's say they don't win and they don't lead any laps, most of them are going to be in the mid 50 range. So how cheap? We have 61.33 left over. So you could go we got who is going to potentially finish in first that's cheap? I mean, not really anybody. I mean, maybe a Nemechek. That takes us to $6,600 left. You could possibly throw a Gilliland in or an Allmendinger. McDowell actually had some decent speed, but Allmendinger's got, that leaves 7,100. You're now looking at a Priest or Josh Berry. The problem with Josh Berry is we don't really have much detail on, but Josh Berry, unless he goes out and wrecks in the first couple laps, should not finish in 35th. He'll probably finish 20th. But that all fits. The problem is you're kind of banking on John Hunter Nemechek finishing top 3. And I don't think that's necessarily the case either. So $5,400, best place differential, play under 5,400. Maybe Rally Herbst at 4,800. And you leave $600 on the table. You could possibly get rid of AJ because I didn't really like AJ's speed in practice. You go to 6,700. You now have... You could do like an Eric Jones. I think Eric Jones is due for possibly another top 5 type finish. So what does that end up playing like? All right, so let's leave Larson there. That's 53 points. I'm running out of space here, or let me see. All right, so that's 53 points, and we said Blaney, they both can't finish in 9th. They'll move Blaney to 8th. 57 points. And then we'll come back to William Byron in a second on all of his information. 31st to, let's say 10th. 63 points. He's not going to lead laps, though, so take that away. And we'll take a few of these away just to be safe. 58 points. And then, who do we decide to put in next? Herbst starting in 29th. And if you think Hamlin dominates, that's going to leave at least 2 of the guys out. So I guess the question is, do you play 2 or 3 of the top salary guys? Yes. And I think that's going to be kind of that's going to be the play that most people are going to go after. So if you're looking, I think as a cash tournament play, I think that's definitely the play. If you're in a large field tournament and you need to differentiate, that's probably not the play. But that's potentially where the most points are going to be scored. So we're kind of sitting in a very, very chalky race type situation, but you're going to have probably 8 drivers that are going to be chalky. And not all 8 of them are going to do well. And we're going to have 1 or 2 sneaky picks that are just going to happen to have really good days. And that's what we got to figure out. That's going to be the key. But we've got a Herb starting in 29th. If he gets up to, let's say, 17th, which would actually be a pretty decent little day for him. I'm not sure that's enough, though. 38 points. Yeah, that might work with this price tag. So 38 points. What I'm trying to do is I want to figure out what the total looks like. And let's say Barry starting in 35th makes it up to 8, let's say even 20th. That's another 38 points. I'm not sure that's going to be enough, but an Eric Jones starting in 11th has one of the days that he needs to have, and then he potentially could have. And let's say he gets second, even with Denny Hamlin dominating. That's 51 points. So what is that? Bulls 295 points. So now let's go back and look at our optimals again. This is a great question, Bailey Man, and it's to 295. Does not. You are 26, almost 26 points away. Even more here, 36 points away. Yeah, you're going to need more than that. So you're going to need more than likely to find more points or have guys have better days. So you almost, and that's what literally only one person finishing in the top 5. And that's not typically how I build. So to answer your question, I'm trying to think. With Blaney, Larson, and Byron all being PD plays, all finished top 10. Yeah, with all of them finishing top 10 but not winning and not dominating, they're going to score in the high 50s. And if we're thinking that we need to get to 300 points to really have a decent day in tournaments, we need to find somebody that's going to finish in first. You need to find that Denny Hamlin, and I'm not sure that even really plays that well. Let's move Denny back into first. 59.25 points. So if we take 59 points, if I took out Blaney or took out Larson or whoever I had at 53 points, it's an extra 6. That takes us to 301. Gets us closer. So I think you definitely need that. I think the play really is two of the 3. If you think that Hamlin, Blaney, and Byron all finish top 10, I think you just have to pick and choose which one you think might end up scoring 2 to 3 points more. if that makes sense. Because they're so expensive, it really limits what you can do or not do. So yeah, I mean, great question, and that's kind of the thought process, and that's how you kind of have to start building lineups as you go. Okay, how do I get to 320? And you don't really have to get to 320. That's for an optimal lineup. A lot of times, the optimal does not win a tournament. You can be slightly suboptimal and still take down a tournament. I don't think I was not optimal in my win today. I didn't win big, but I won, and it was 25. Oh wow, sorry. Was watching the LSU Coastal Carolina game, and LSU shut them out by a 1-0 score. I guess they don't play 9 innings. I thought they played 9 innings. That was definitely not 9 innings. Just I don't think. But good job, family man. Your LSU Tigers finally beat up on the 26-game winning streak Coastal Carolina team. I was rooting for Coastal Carolina. Sorry. LSU's won enough in the past. But they could have that one. Coastal Carolina can get the next two. All right, so back to NASCAR. So William Byron, starting in 31st, he was fastest in practice in single lap and 5-lap consecutive average. Pretty much everything was going his way until 2/3 through his qualifying lap when he hit the bumps and spun it out like Kyle Busch spins it out. William Byron, you also can be kind of one of those. He's just had some tough luck towards the end of these races and just hasn't been able to finish them off. But his practice speed's significantly very, very good. Almost every lap was below average until we got to lap 17 and just a tick over the average spot. But very, very good and fast during practice, and then goes out and wrecks his primary car. Once again, unsure on whether they're going to be able to make repairs. He clobbered the wall, though. I would be shocked if they don't just go to a backup car. But I don't get paid the big bucks to figure that out. So, but once again, we kind of played with his stuff anyways a second ago. But if we put it back all in, calculator 31st. If he gets second, that definitely plays. But what do we need for him to get to 10th? Remember, this is the 55-point deal. And he'll have fast laps if he makes it that far up the field. It might not be a ton. It won't be his average. Let's say he gets to 5. That's 57.25 points, which is easily more than enough. His average finish is 19th. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky, is we don't know what that backup car is going to be able to do. Most times their backup cars, because of the next gen, it's plug and play. It'll still be quick. But if he gets to his average finish of 19, that's 38.25. That puts him maybe in the top 15 of points for DraftKings. But at 10,400, that's gonna hurt. And the same thing could be said with any of these guys that are starting from the back. Anybody has an issue or accident, it's going to kill your lineups. So, really what you're trying to do is just find those 6 drivers that don't, and have not one of them kill your lineup. So, but that's kind of, it's all based on where do you think he's going to be able to get up to. And it's going to have to be better than, he's going to have to get up to 10th or 11th to make that 55-point threshold. Yeah. If he gets to there and has 7 fast laps, yeah. So 31st to 11th, 7 fast laps, doesn't need to lead a lap, and he should be in or at around the optimal line. So I'll have some William Byron, but so will everybody else. And that's the tough part is Blaney, Larson, Byron, and Hamlin are all chalky plays. And I mean, heck, Christopher Bell's chalky. If you want to think about it, I mean, I actually, if you want to take a Denny Hamlin out and put a Christopher Bell in, I actually think that's not a bad play. I also don't mind the play of Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin. And you just take one of Byron, Blaney, or Larson. So I would actually fade Larson, even though I am a Larson fan. But there's definitely been a little struggle there. And he has always had a little bit of trouble working his way through a field without overdriving the car and then ending up with an issue. But he can do it. So, but Christopher Bell, starting in ninth, he's got an average finish of 5.8 at the 5 tracks we're comparing to, with an average running position of 9.1. He finished 12th in this race last year. Got 3 wins on the season. He can do different strategies to potentially get another win, or potentially stay out to get stage points if he can get a stage win. So those are all things that you have to kind of start thinking about. He did have a power steering pump issue, but they were able to replace the power steering pump. Don't try to say that fast 3 times. At the beginning of practice. And with that, he only was able to make a 5-lap run. He was quick in those 5 laps, so he's going to be fine. He qualified in 9th. He needs to finish in first, lead 20 laps, and have 10 fast laps, and he gets to 62 points. So let's say he does lead some laps. Let's say Denny Hamlin passes him towards the end of a race, and he finishes in 3rd. Well, I mean, it's still enough if he can get the 20 laps led and 10 fast laps. Christopher Bell's very much in play. I think, honestly, he could end up being a little bit of a sleeper. So if you're looking for that sleeper, I think Christopher Bell is... You could play him with Hamlin, or you could substitute Bell in for Hamlin. I think both are very, very playable and very, very doable, because Christopher Bell is going to be one of the faster guys that are starting in the top 10. There are other guys that could potentially have a decent day that are starting up there, but we've got a lot of real potential questionable drivers in the top 10 to start. I mean, we'll get to them all, but you've got Hocevar starting in 3rd, John Hunter Nemechek starting in 4th, Cole Custer starting in 5th, Gibbs starting in 7th, Briscoe starting in 6th. We've seen what Briscoe does at the beginning of all these races. He falls to the back or falls to the middle of the field. I mean, at Buescher, I would trust a little bit more than Hocevar, Nemechek, and Custer, but one of those 3 is probably going to end up having a decent day. But, I think pivoting from Hamlin to Bell is a great GPP move. Scary, but that's what you have to do to beat everyone else. Yeah. I will definitely pivot from Hamlin to Bell. But I'll also pivot away from and only run one of the other 3 that are starting towards the back, Blaney, Larson, or Byron, and I'll pivot to Bell and only run one of those guys. I think that's definitely easily a play also. Another play is Tyler Reddick. I don't know if I trust Tyler Reddick right now. That's a real tough call. They've shown decent speed in practice. They've shown that they can get up towards the front, but then the 2311 team has definitely had some troubles getting good finishes consistently. One week, Bubba Wallace will have a top 10 finish. The next week, Tyler Reddick will get a top 10 finish. And in fact, really honestly, Tyler Reddick has not had the best finishes this year. In fact, let me look at that real quick. Where is Tyler Reddick? Where's his trend line? Yeah, I mean, Tyler Reddick's last 10 races, he's got a 15.8 average finish. Bubba Wallace has a 17.6 average finish compared to a Denny Hamlin 13.4 or a Christopher Bell at a 9.7 or even a Ross Chastain with a 9.6. Those are kind of the top average finishes. William Byron has an 11.5. Chase Elliott has a 10.4. So Tyler Reddick being an average finish of 15th in the last 10 races is a little bit concerning because I think at this point in time last year, he was finishing races much more consistently in the top 10, top 5. So they've had a little bit of an up and down. If we look at his practice speeds, he was very good on the long run from about lap 9 to, 22. He was faster than the average. He was faster than Denny Hamlin. So, I mean, Reddick starting in 8th is absolutely in play, and it's another pivot. You can pivot away from Hamlin and play Reddick if you don't play Bell. I think I trust the Bell play more than the Reddick play, but if you're thinking about trying to be different, Reddick's even a better option than Bell is to differentiate from the field. So that's just my thought process on if you're trying to be sneaky, trying to find maybe the guy that is going to win the race. It definitely is a Reddick or a Bell are both, I think, very good plays. I still think one of the three, Hocevar, Nemechek, or Custer, are going to be surprise plays tomorrow. Where and how you fit that in your lineup is really scary, but it could be such a large differential that nobody's going to. I doubt anybody. Cole Custer is going to be another 5% play tomorrow. But Tyler Reddick starting in 8th, if he gets to 2nd, let's say he leads 10 laps, it's 54.1. So, I mean, it's amazing. One spot makes it a little bit tougher, but I have him leading 20 laps. So, I don't know. I trust the Christopher Bell play more. It's more contrarian to play the Tyler Reddick play, meaning it's a little bit more sneaky to do that. But if we look at the average finish for Tyler Reddick at the 5 races we're comparing to, it's 4th. That's actually really impressive. The problem is his speed recently has not been great. Just saying. But out of those 5 races that we're comparing to, he's got 5 top 10s. I mean, this track type really might fit Tyler Reddick really well. His practice speeds were really good. And we've got more of a data point to lean on than Christopher Bell. I think Tyler Reddick is easily, you can mix and match Bell and Hamlin and Reddick. I think all 3 of those are not bad plays. And then, of course, we've got Chase Elliott, who is consistently finishing in the top 10. In fact, his average finish for the 5 races we're comparing to is 10th. And his average running position is 10.9. He finished 9th in this race last year. So all indications are probably he's going to finish 7, 8, 9. And every once in a while, Chase Elliott has a really good day and goes out and finishes in the top 3. And if we look at his practice speeds, they weren't bad. They weren't great. They were average. They were right there with Denny Hamlin's. They're right there with the field. Everybody's very, very close to this line. Some people had a little bit better. Some people had a little bit worse. But for the most part, I didn't see anything super glaring other than like Cody Ware or, I mean, in those types, which I'm not overly concerned about anyways. But we'll get to all of those in just a few minutes. And I understand if anybody is leaving and headed over to watch the President's State of the Union or whatever discussion. Oh, this will be here. Come back and finish watching it. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe button. I appreciate you tuning in. And go watch Trump if you'd like. If not, stay with me. and not worry about World War III. All right. Chase Elliott, starting in 18th. If we think he gets to his like normal 8th or 9th, let's say he does not lead any laps. Let's say he's not typically known for having a ton of fast laps. Let's back that down to 7. That's 49.15. I don't think that's quite enough. He's going to need to finish a little bit better than where we're thinking. 5th? Yeah, 5th will put him at that 55 points. Now, at 9,500, yeah, he's probably still going to need to be getting close to that 55 points. It's really, once you get sub 9,000, you can kind of drop this down to about 50 points for that optimal line. So, Chase Elliott going to need to finish in 5th or potentially lead laps or have more fast laps. But starting in 18th, I don't mind the play. It makes it a little bit tougher than Blaney, and Blaney has been known to go at least lead some laps and have more fast laps and has the ability to work his way through the field at least earlier in a race than Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott just seems to grind his way there and finally get there in the last like 20 laps of a race, which leaves him back in the muck a little bit longer than I really cared to, because then bad things happen back in the muck. All right, next in line here is Joey Logano starting in 12th. His practice speeds were 30th and 18th. And if we look at his average finishes for the 5 races we're comparing to, it's a whopping, amazing 25.6. 25.6. And that's with a 5th place finish last year at Pocono. Oh boy. Yeah, not spectacular by any means. He does have his 1 win under his belt. His practice speeds were average. And he's starting in 12th. Well, average would be about 18th. So, and if his average finish is 25.6, even if we look at his average running position, it's 18.3. So it's not like he's been running well in this style track and up towards the front. This race is hard to figure out. Let's see. Andrew says this race is hard to figure out. Both races this weekend, 2 the best cars haven't won. Who did you think was going to win the Xfinity race today? I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I guess that's the real question: is who do you think should have won the Xfinity race? The truck race probably should have been Corey Heim, but Corey really kind of was off. Yeah, I mean, Corey Heim had a flat tire. He probably should have won that race. I would have actually made a ton of money with that. Allgaier or Chase? Yeah, Allgaier slipped up into Chase. I'll give you that. Okay. I think the reason why I did well today was I had a fair amount of Zilich, and who's HOCE? Hocevar could have won the trucks. Yes, he could have. But I think Heim was actually probably the fastest car. Well, actually, I think the fastest car actually won both races, because they did win both races. I mean, from the pole, Riggs got the win, so he was definitely fast. That was his first time there, and it was the first time that Zilich had been to the track. But that track type just fit Zilich like a glove. It really did. I also had Quapple, and I actually thought Quapple was going to come from 22nd to win the race. So, sorry to sell headline that Ellie De La Cruz was sick during the game. But Joe Logano, I definitely do not like this starting spot for Joey. He's very average at best. This track type just doesn't really fit his driving style superbly. Blaney's better at more flat track. So I'm a fade off of Joey. And even with him finishing in 3rd, leading 5 laps, gets you to 53.95. Now it's right on the cusp. But that's asking a whole lot for somebody who's got a 25th place average finish at this style track over the last 5 races. I'm just saying. So I'm gonna fade off of Joe Logano. I don't think his ownership's going to be super high. I don't think it's going to be super low. So I'm not sure if it's a sneaky play or not. And starting in 12th is kind of a no man's land at this type of track because you don't have enough place differential, and I don't think he's got enough speed to go out and be a dominator. And to finish in third only gets you to 54 points, and that's honestly with leading laps, and I don't think he leads any laps unless it just happens to be on a green flag cycle. So 52 points to finish in third. That might cut it, might not cut it. I don't think so. I think there's many other drivers that could easily finish ahead of Joey. Joey would need a lot of different things to happen for him to have a good day. Ross Chastain, $9,000, starting 21st. And just like our previous driver, Joey Logano, Ross Chastain's this style track's not his best. He does okay, but he's not great at these flat tracks. Starting in 21st, there is place differential, but out of his 9 total starts at Pocono, he's got a 28.8 average finish. He finished at 36th the last year we were here. And out of the 5 racetracks that we're comparing to, he's got 1 top 10, 3 top 20s, and he's starting 21st. Even his average running position is 19.4. And if we look at his practice speeds, he starts off okay, and then once he slips, I don't know if his tires get hot or if he had some mishandling characteristics or ended up behind somebody, but he's slower than average. Now he's starting kind of in the 21st spot, so that's kind of where he's going to be, but you need him to finish top 8. Now, out of a lot of people, Ross Chastain has found speed throughout a race to get himself up there. I don't think this is the best track for Ross, and I don't think it's the best track for Joey. Even if he gets up to 8th, which is actually maybe a little more implausible than a top 5, but I think that's still asking a lot. With an average finish of 24th. So I'm a fade on Ross Chastain, even starting on 21st. Not complete fade. So, if I'm running 40 lineups, I may run him in 4. So maybe 10%. I think, honestly, that might be where he'll probably come in with probably 15 to 20% ownership because of his starting spot and because he's had some really good races lately. I just don't know if this one's lined up for him. Chris Buescher here at 8,800, starting in second. Buescher got his first win at Pocono. He kind of has his heart's big when it comes to his first win. Now, it was in a fog. It wasn't rain, but they did end up having to call the race because the spotters couldn't see the cars. The fog rolled in, and they just couldn't spot for him. So they ended up calling the race early. Now, it had rained earlier, but once the fog settled in, it was over. And that was Chris Buescher's first win. So the place has a sentimental feeling for Buescher. And he's starting in second. His averages are not great. 17.4. Finished 11th in this race last year, but his practice speeds were really good. He's 5th in single lap, 3rd in 5-lap consecutive average. He's pretty much average when it comes to his average finishes. His practice speeds were very good. Much better than average, much better than Denny Hamlin. Now, he only got to 14 laps total of practice, so yeah, question mark on how well that does. And we're kind of in a sticky spot. So this is if you play Chris, you do what you want, but I'm not going to play a Denny Hamlin and a Chris Buescher together. Because if, let's say Denny Hamlin does lead a big chunk of this race and Chris Buescher is able to lead 10 laps and finish in second, that's 46.3. Now, you could flip it and it changes the dynamic. And if you think Chris Buescher can beat Denny Hamlin, that's kind of asking Ty Gibbs to go and beat SVG at a road course. Don't think it's going to happen. And I don't think starting in second, finishing in second, getting 46.3 points, even at $8,800, I guess it could play. Short and sweet Trump statement already over. Wow. 9 minutes? 10 minutes? All right. I guess he pretty much was like Hillary Clinton. We came, we saw, they died. End of story. All right. I guess we'll see what happens. Hopefully the world doesn't melt down the next 2 weeks or tomorrow or tonight. Yeah, so let's go to Florida. I want to go to Florida. All right. Brad Keselowski, 8,600 starting in. So Chris Buescher, I think it's, if you think Denny Hamlin's going to have a major problem and you don't, and you think Chris Buescher can hang with an average finish of about 17th or 18th, then, I mean, Chris Buescher's in play. He's not going to have a ton of ownership. He'll be in that 15 to 17% ownership. So it's tough when you've got somebody like we had SVG last week, and we've got Denny Hamlin this week, that by all rights should win and probably dominate the race. It just makes it very tough to then look at even a decent second place starter and go, well, I actually am going to go against the grain and say they're going to have a problem, and Chris Buescher is going to have a good day. When Chris Buescher, the only way he won that race was because it was called early because of fog. Now, he got up there somehow, and I can't remember exactly. I think it was actually they pitted. They didn't pit. Everybody else pitted, and he ended up getting the win. It was like a real sneaky way to do it. But, so, it's just really, really tough when you've got somebody that, in all honesty, is probably going to start first, finish first, and probably lead a fair amount of laps. Now, all it takes is one bad pit stop, get mired back in the field, and that changes everything. But I don't know if Chris Buescher's the one that I don't think Chris Buescher beats Christopher Bell. I put probably more faith in Tyler Reddick beating Chris Buescher than Chris Buescher winning the race. So with those two other drivers that I think have the potential to beat Buescher, there's no reason for me to do it. So I'm probably a fade on Chris Buescher. It is a potential play, but it could be a fade. Brad Keselowski, 8,600, looking for anything at all to turn his season around. Maybe Pocono is it. I don't think so, though. Kind of the same thing as Buescher, kind of the same thing as Joey Logano. But look at their average finishes out of the last 5 races at these tracks at 17.6. If we look at his 26 total starts at Pocono, he does have 11 out of 26 he's finished in the top 5. That was all before the next gen era. It was actually all before he bought RFK and before 2020. Since all that happened, it's been average at best for Brad. And the other thing is, you're also asking the 33rd guy in points to go out and have a top 10 or top 5 day. His practice speeds were okay. He only did 13. Doesn't tell me a whole lot. He kind of qualified where he practiced, so, I mean, there's a potential he stays up there, but let's say he gets 13th. Well, let's say he even leads 5 laps. It's 35 points. That doesn't even make the top 15 in points. And I guess Brad could be a top 10 driver, but I'm not sure he gets in the top 5 out without some real varying strategy, which could always play. But from 14th, with only leading 5 laps, he's going to have to get to somewhere between third and sixth. I mean, what have you done for me lately, Brad? Not a whole lot, really. So Brad's kind of sitting where Joey Logano is. It's tough to get up there and get those points. Possible, but I also think Brad probably comes in under-owned. So Brad, if you're making a decision, should I take a Brad Keselowski or should I take a Joey Logano? I think I'd probably take a Brad Keselowski because I think Joey probably ends up getting a little bit more ownership than a Brad Keselowski. But at 8,600, if you're starting 3 of the top 5 highest price guys, I'm not sure Brad Keselowski fits into that grouping anyways. Which is also, if you're looking to really pivot away from the chalk, Brad Keselowski could be one of the guys that's in play. Like, I can guarantee right now, Brad Keselowski, Ty Gibbs are not going to probably be in too many lineups together. It just doesn't fit very well with everyone else. Do I still have that up? Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you do this number over here, let's take all these people out. Let's say you put a Brad K in and what did I say? Ty Gibbs in. And let's say you take a Kyle Larson and a William Byron. Those are our 2 coming from the back. But you're now down to $6,000 left per driver. So maybe a Todd Gillen? Now you're at 6,500. Michael McDowell. I would probably make a guess that you would be the only one with that lineup. But the problem is you're hoping that Ty Gibbs goes out and gets a top 3, and you're hoping that a Brad Keselowski gets a top 5. And Larson and Byron, okay, pretty reasonable that they can get to the top 10. I don't know. That's interesting, actually, a very interesting lineup, and it probably is not going to get played. So I'm saying you're not going to probably see Brad and Gibbs lined up together. So, but Ty Gibbs starting in 7th, he was 12th in single lap, 8th in 5-lap consecutive average. I think Ty Gibbs has finally rounded the corner of my Cup career sucks. But it started off decent, and then it got really bad, and then it got worse. And I think they finally have I think they hit the rock bottom, I guess, probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago. And I think Ty Gibbs is on his way back up to the top. Much more consistent, much faster in practice. All the things are starting to head in the right direction for Ty Gibbs. So we're back to the whole discussion. Which one gets to win first, Ty Gibbs or Carson Hocevar? Well, until Ricky Stenhouse takes care of Carson Hocevar at least once, I'll lean back towards Ty Gibbs possibly getting a win before Carson Hocevar. Because I think if Carson Hocevar has the potential to win and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. can affect it by any means, he will. Yeah, his practice speeds were pretty good. Average finish of 17.8. I mean, his average finishes are not great either, but Ty Gibbs is just a strange one. This is a tough call too. This is who do you think is going to end up being better? Tyler Reddick, Ty Gibbs, or Christopher Bell? Honestly, on paper, it's a coin toss between Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick, and Ty Gibbs is not even in the discussion. Well, that gives you an indication on probably where the field, and when I say the field, it's not chalky, because I don't think any 3 of these players end up being chalky. But I think Bell and Reddick have more ownership than Ty Gibbs. So if you're looking to potentially be sneaky, Ty Gibbs could easily be there. it's more risky. It's even more risky taking Ty Gibbs than Tyler Reddick. And I think the safe play is more of a Christopher Bell play. So that's my 2 cents on the guys starting 7th, 8th, and 9th. They're all three very playable and potentially playable with Denny Hamlin and two of the other expensive guys. Well, I don't think you can do Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, and two more expensive guys. I think you've run out of money quickly. And then you're stuck down in no man's land and taking Brandon Poole, who has a start at the rear, green flag pass through penalty. Kyle Busch, Benny, Kyle Busch. The sports books need to have a yes or no prop out there for Kyle Busch on whether he spins his car out or not every weekend. The problem is it might be negative 150 to make that bet because he spins out every weekend, especially bumpy tracks. And this track's bumpy. He's got an average finish of 23rd for the 5 races we're comparing to. It's abysmal. One top 5, which gave him the top 10, top 20. He finished 32nd this race last year. Even out of his 36 total starts, it's a 15.1. Now, he does have 4 wins, but I'm telling you, this Pocono is way different than what it used to be with this next-gen car. And Kyle Busch does not like this next-gen car. So, oh, look at there. Brendan McQueen. Butterball just absolutely demolishing the field, up by 4 seconds. Oops, caution's out on the speedway. His practice speeds were average. Starting in 26, there's place differential here. If you don't think Kyle Busch is going to spin, and he has a decent day, I mean, what's decent? 15th gets you to 42.15 points. He's going to need to finish better than 15th. Can he get to 10th? That puts him in the lineup. Probably even 12th. Can he get to 12th? I think it's reasonable that Kyle Busch gets to 12th. The problem is just track type and car setup just does not bode well for Kyle Busch, or at least it hasn't in the past. So, I don't know. I don't know what to do with Kyle Busch. I put Kyle Busch right there now with Joey Logano. I just don't ever know what to do with him on a weekly basis. I'll have some ownership because there's place differential there, and if he just does happen to have a day where he doesn't spin, then he ends up having a decent day. But man, it's tough. I mean, he won 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2022, 3 years ago. And then he won 2. So he definitely has the capability of winning here. And that was in the next gen car. Now, the problem is they cheated. So who knows where they really would have been. And I really don't think a piece of tape underneath the thing made that big of a difference. But I don't know. I'm just a guy that talks on the internet. Yeah, he's going to need to finish top 12. It's possible. I said, I'm not going to be a complete fade on it. But it's probably going to be a 10% ownership. Which probably might be even with the field. He probably comes in at 15 to 20% because it is Kyle Busch. Chase Briscoe starting in 6th. One of these days, Chase Briscoe is going to burn me and burn me bad. And I'll be like, I knew it was coming. I still don't think this is the weekend for it, though. His practice speeds were, they're pretty good. But his average finishes here, 17.4. He's got 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 3 top 20s. I know it's at the 5 races we're comparing to. Yeah, it definitely is, because if we look at his total starts at Pocono, he's got a 21.2 average finish and only 2 top 20s, no top 10s. So these top 5s and top 10 came from, I think, probably New Hampshire. Practice speeds were okay. But he's going to need to get, even getting to second only gets you 46.45 points. You're going to need to do better than that. And once again, if I start to weigh the four options of the guy starting 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm much more Bell, Reddick, in the order that I like them. Bell being first, Reddick being second, Gibbs being third, and Briscoe being fourth. So, you can have him. You can have him in the lineup. The problem is, do you take a Chase Briscoe? Yes, it's $7,900 compared to $11,000. Completely understand the rationale between the cost savings, but do you really? A whole lot is going to have to happen for Chase Briscoe to have a winning day, because this is him finishing second. He gets to 46 points. It just, the calculations don't work real well when you're trying to get 6 drivers to get to 300 points. You're looking for an average of 50 points per driver. In fact, it's a little more like 53 or 54 points per driver. And even with him finishing in first by leading even a few laps. So if he leads 15 laps and he finishes in first, that's 54 points. That would put Chase Briscoe in there. But looking at everything equally, you got an average finish of 17.4 or 21.2 at Pocono. And he's never finished in the top 10. Why all of a sudden, now that he's in the 19 car, is that going to happen? I just don't think it's going to. I said, Chase Briscoe is going to burn me one day, and it could be tomorrow, but I'm willing to take that chance. Just like I think Carson Hocevar. Now, if Carson Hocevar had practiced super fast, the days that Carson Hocevar ends up doing pretty well when he qualifies well is when he's actually had a pretty fast car in practice. And he was 23rd in single lap. He did 22 laps of practice and did not get a 5-lap consecutive run in, which means he was definitely searching for speed. And when we look at his practice charts, he was slow, fast, slow, average, slow. He was all over the board. Very inconsistent, which means his car seems to be pretty unbalanced, which means I really don't trust him starting in third. I'm not even sure I would trust it starting in 23rd. Maybe. But starting in third, no way. Especially if Ricky Stenhouse gets anywhere close to this kid, it's lights out. It's over. And you have to drive aggressive, which Carson Hocevar could easily do. But you drive aggressive at Pocono, you can get bit real fast at this track. So I'm a fade off Carson Hocevar. He's starting way too far up for me. And if it burns me, it burns me. But once again, he's going to have to win and lead 20 or 25 laps and not screw up in the pits. So I'm a fade off of there. Bubba Wallace. Oh, you want to talk about pissed off and heartbroken for Bubba Wallace. Wow. And the look in his eyes when that car would not start to go out and qualify. Second fastest in practice. Second fastest in 5-lap consecutive average. He and Byron were lights out in practice. Super consistent, super fast. And both go out to qualify. Bubba Wallace doesn't even get a chance to get on the track because his car won't fire. Unsure what the problem is with that. So make sure you're tuning in tomorrow and make sure that they fixed it. I'm sure they will. They'll pull the backup car out. But I don't know if the backup car will be as fast, second. But yeah, starting 34th now. If he just gets to 16th, that's a 45.9. That's his average finish. That's where he's averaging. So if he gets to 12th, it's 53.9. I think Bubba Wallace is definitely in play. Now the question is, can you can you run a Bubba Wallace? And so let's clear all these out. Here, clear. Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, Blaney. We haven't gotten to Bowman yet, but I like the Bowman potential. Starting in 25th. And so that leaves us $6,700. We can go inexpensive and pull in a Todd Gilliland. $7,800. Who do we got left here? Cindric. Oh, Josh Berry. Yeah, that definitely plays. I don't know if I love having three guys starting in the 30s, but I mean, you've got a Berry, a Bubba Wallace, Byron. I mean, yeah, that's crazy. You could go really crazy. Heck with Denny Hamlin. You could put in a Larson, a Byron. You really can't do that. 5,300 takes us to Dylan, Nemechek, Dylan, Herbst. Maybe a Herbst. Yeah, I don't like that though. I don't trust Herbst and Gilliland to both get up there after starting in the back. All right, just wondering what that looked like. But yeah, the Bubba Wallace play is absolutely in play, and he was super fast in practice. But the 2311 teams have been fighting me in both directions all year long so far this year. The weekends I don't have them, they do well. The weekends I do have them, they suck. So take that for what it is. Alex Bowman starting in 25th. He was 9th in single lap, 22nd in 5-lap consecutive average. He's got a 21.4. He's got a win here. He got lucky when Kyle Larson cut a wheel coming out of turn 3, turn 4, whatever, on the final lap back during the COVID era, I think is what it was. I think 2021, the first race. Practice speeds were average to slightly better than average. 25th. He gets to third, that's 64. That's a big day. Big day. 12th, 45.3. That's 7,400. I still think you're probably closer to 50. So he's going to need to get a top 10, which, I mean, Alex Bowman definitely is capable of. He's kind of like Chase Elliott. He always tends to get himself to 8, 9, or 10. So I think Alex Bowman is definitely in play. I also think he probably has the potential to be decently owned. So take that for granted. He's not a sneaky play, but I think he's a decent play. Austin Cindric, 7,200, starting in 19th. He was pretty quick in practice, 7th in single lap, 4th in 5-lap consecutive average, not 10. Nobody got to 10. Some people did, but not enough. 20.0 average finish, 24th place average running position. He finished 18th in this race last year, but he is outperforming himself compared to any other year. Practice speeds were really, really good. His long run speed actually looked really good. So the question is, I mean, he's definitely in the mix of, you could, if you've got a lineup where you're trying to figure out, hey, I've got $7,600 and you're going to play that lineup in a couple different things. You could go with an Austin Cindric in one. You can go with an Alex Bowman in one. I think they're pretty interchangeable. Now, Alex Bowman's got a tick more PD upside, and I think they both have a top 10 potential, maybe even a top 5, but I think they could easily finish very close to each other or have the potential to be right there in the top 10. So I think Cindric's in play. I think Bowman probably has a little bit more ownership because there's more PD upside, but I think they're both in play. 19th to 15th only gets you to 32. I think he's definitely going to need that top 10. He's going to need more than that. He needs 7th. Yeah, I think 7th may do it. I think he can get real close to being in the optimal lineup at 49 or 48 points at 7,200. So Austin's going to, you're pretty much going to think, does Austin Cindric get too close to a top 5, and does Alex Bowman get closer to a top 10? Honestly, I think Alex Bowman has a better chance to potentially get to a top 10, and Alex Bowman said he feels 100% no pain in his back, so no issues there. Ryan Preece at $7,000, starting in 13th. He was 19th in single lap, 11th in 10 lap consecutive average. The Ryan Preece play is literally, do you think RFK is going to have a knock it out of the park day? They all have qualified well. Buscher's in 2nd. Brad Kay's in 14th, and Ryan Preece is in 13th. They've all qualified top 15. Is it a fluke, or are they going to be able to hold and maintain top 15? Averages say no. Speed on the chart's a little inconsistent for Ryan Preece. He's had a phenomenal, way better than most years that I've ever seen with Ryan Preece. Can he keep that train going? And, I mean, starting in 13th, it just takes a lot. He's going to have to get to, what do we say, like 46, 47 points? So he's going to need to get to 5th or 6th. Possible. I'm not saying it's not. But it's just, it's tough. The Preece call is a tough call. It has the potential to be there. The problem is he's finished in the top 10 once out of 7, never in the top 5. And in the last 3 races, or 5 races we're comparing to, he's only got 1 top 20. It's tough. That's a tough hill to climb. Where it gets real easy to climb for Josh Berry. He did get 5 laps of practice in, but none of them were very good because they knew that they had an issue with the undercarriage in the back. And they pretty much had to rip the entire rear end of this car off and replace it. And that pretty much said he was not going to qualify. So he didn't qualify. He gets the 35th starting spot. And yeah, I mean, his averages, if we're looking at it right here, should be about 20th. So, as I said, no practice speeds, so we just go and skip to the calculator. If he gets to 15th, it's a 49.8. So, and this is where these really guys that are starting towards the back, this is where it's a real potential false flag to say. Because if he gets to 20th, I don't know if 39.8 points at $6,900 points you in. It's top 15, yeah, but it's not optimal. So he's going to need to get to at least 15th. My top 3 contrarian plays for the race. Woo! I haven't built enough lineups to really give you that full, honest answer. Cindric is going to be low owned. Reddick, maybe Gibbs. Gibbs would be very contrarian. He's not going to be very high owned. And it all is on whether you think Denny Hamlin wins. Doesn't necessarily need to dominate. Does he start first, lead 30 laps, and end up finishing in first at the end? That almost has to be the first. I think it has to be the first thing you go to. Is you build the lineup with Denny Hamlin, and you just think he's going to lead 30, 40, 50 laps, and he's going to finish first or second. It doesn't even necessarily have to win, but is he going to finish first or second? If you're thinking that that's not going to happen, because that actually would be the chalky play. So your first contrarian play is Denny Hamlin does not do that. After that, I think it's a choice on who you substitute in for Hamlin, whether that's Bell, Gibbs, or Reddick. And I think that's how you have part two to the contrarian play. Part three to a contrarian play. Would be, I'm scrolling through and looking at these guys real quick. Not that Chase Elliott would be contrarian, but because where he falls, pricing and starting position, and that he's not super dominant, could be kind of contrarian. Does that help you with your maybe top three contrarian plays for the race? There's not a whole lot real sneaky with this race that makes sense. Now, there's going to be something illogical about the race tomorrow. What that is, if I could figure that out before, I'd be a very rich person. But yeah, building the lineup. The first contrarian play is Denny Hamlin not winning, because Denny Hamlin is absolutely in the same spot SVG was last week. And then you go from there. If you think Denny Hamlin is going to win, then you just lock him in and you move on, and then you find your other contrarian play behind it. And that ends up looking something like one of either a Brad Keselowski or Ryan Preece. They're probably going to be pretty low owned. Maybe I don't think Ty Gibbs gets you enough. Ty Gibbs would probably fit better. Yeah, so I think you build everything within the top 20. And you just stay away from Blaney, even though I pretty much would almost guarantee that Blaney, Larson, or Byron are gonna end up being in the optimal lineup. One of the three, if not potentially all three. So, yeah, this is a chalky race. So you're gonna have to go way out on a limb to get contrarian. Suarez starting in 10th, way outkicked his coverage in my opinion. Practice speeds were average at best. 17.2. He finished 16th in this race last year. Is Daniel Suarez going to beat Reddick? Is he going to beat Bell? Is he going to beat Gibbs? He might be able to beat Gibbs. I don't think he beats Bell. I don't think he beats Reddick. Cole Custer, John Hunter, Nemechek. I mean, John Hunter will actually give Daniel Suarez more fits than Cole Custer will. And then at that point, I'm not that worried about Carson Hocevar. Being contrarian tomorrow will be gaining leverage on the field by having more or less than a specific driver. If Hamlin is 40% and you like him, go 50 or 60. That's how you win. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I think you have to go in. And you could actually end up playing it. And this is kind of how I do a lot of my builds. Is you've got, ideally there's only really 4 20 max to play. There's the quarter, there's the dollar, there's the $4. There's a $2 and an $8, but so you've got more in the Cup Series. But I typically don't play any more than 4, and then I just kind of figure out, and I build a scenario around each tournament. And then what I'll do is I'll take all either 40, 60, 80 of those lineups, and I'll put them all in the 50 cent 150 max. And kind of see which one of the scenarios ends up working. And I think you have to build each one of those scenarios with some contrarian plays to play in tournaments. As a cash tournament, it's you're playing safe. That what's the safest way to get to 45 points per driver? You don't have to get to the 55 because you're not looking for the optimal. If you're looking at the 50-50 tournament, you just have to beat half the field. You definitely don't have to be optimal at that point. So you're literally just building for safety. And it's at that point, if you can get to 40 to 45 points on average per driver, then you should win. Cash tournaments are a little bit easier to deal, but typically you're only going to get close to doubling up. It's actually a little less than double up because the house takes a little bit. So that's my process on how I sometimes build lineups, and tomorrow is definitely one of those days. Is you build a scenario in your head and you build a lineup around that. It's Denny Hamlin's going to win or Denny Hamlin's not going to win. Then it's, do the rest of the Gibbs guys, the JGRs and the Toyotas have a great day, or is it a Ford type of day? Is it a fuel mileage type of day? Is it going to be an absolute wreckfest type of day? All those different scenarios play in, and all of those scenarios end up playing differently with different drivers. Like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is kind of like Kyle Busch. If we think this is going to be a melee type of a race and a huge wreckfest, I don't want anything to do with Ricky Stenhouse, and I don't want anything to do with Carson Hocevar, and I don't want anything to do with Kyle Busch. Those three are going to be the first three that are going to wreck the field. At least that's been the recent trend. So there's that. I guess you could actually almost put Kyle Larson into that. But Ricky Stenhouse was not good in practice. Not good. His averages are not awful at the 5 races we're comparing to. At Pocono, it's a 24.6. 5 races we're comparing to, it's 15.6 or an 18.7 average running position. I just don't think Ricky Stenhouse... he's been outperforming his averages. So, starting in 30th, if his practice speeds were a little bit better, I would feel a little bit better about putting him in some lineups. The problem is, most everybody's been running close to the average, and Ricky's not close. So that kind of scares me a little bit. So if you're looking for contrarian, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. might be a little bit contrarian, but honestly, I think he finishes 25th. And that's if he doesn't get close to Carson Hocevar. If he gets close to Carson Hocevar, he may just say, all right, screw it. I'm just going to wreck him. Eric Jones at $6,400 starting in the 11th position. This one's super contrarian. If you're looking for a way to really, really pivot off the field, the problem is Eric Jones has started to become the contrarian play. It's sneaky, not sneaky anymore to play Eric Jones. He and John Hunter, Legacy Motor Club, have improved drastically. So, with that being said, I think Eric Jones could easily have a top 5 type of day. He could potentially even go get a win. He's got 4 top 5s out of 12 races, so 25% of the time, he's finishing in the top 5 at Pocono. This is one of his better tracks. That's even better than that. 25% would be 3. Because half the time he finishes in the top 10. So I honestly think Eric Jones, if you're looking for a super contrarian play and you don't think Denny Hamlin's going to win, have Eric Jones as your winner. And build your lineup around that because it changes the dynamic completely. So, and Eric Jones, good average speed. I mean, if we're looking at him and Denny Hamlin, they are neck and neck. Can Eric Jones get through the field? Can he have quick pick stops? Yeah, potentially. And what does that do? If he goes up and he's able to get to first, let's say he ends up with 12 fast laps, and let's say he's able to lead 30 laps. Yeah, it's a shoo-in. Them 4 top 5s ranks 4th among active drivers at Pocono. He's a must play. Yeah. I think Eric Jones is absolutely in play. I think he's absolutely in play. You could... Oh, Brendan McQueen did not end up winning the race. Oh, darn. Butterbean. Yeah, Eric Jones is definitely in play. And his teammates in play too. It's just a little tougher because he just... we'll get to him in a second. Michael McDowell, 6,200, starting in 28th. I don't know what to do with Michael McDowell. Hey, man, if you're still out there, what's your thoughts about Michael McDowell? This is just a tough call. His lap times in practice were a little inconsistent. His average finishes here are 16.4, 17.1 average running position, 21 total starts. He's never finished in the top 5, 2 times in the top 10. Out of 21 starts, 25.2. I mean, he was with really, really crappy teams for a long time and made a decent amount out of them. Fan-Man, do you think those stats will raise Jones' ownership? For the diehard guys, I mean, potentially anybody that's watching this, or anybody that's done the research that Fan-Man does, that I do, that, you know, and I mean, it's not a secret anymore because we're talking about it. But there's a lot of people who don't watch these, that don't look that deep into stats. I think the 11th place starting spot will scare more people off than get people in. Now, will I think he will have a 15 to 20% ownership? Yeah, good possibility. So I don't know how absolutely contrarian it is, but I think it probably could be more contrarian than... I think it's a 50. I think he's going to be 15% owned, maybe 20. I think 20 is on the high end. AJ Allmendinger at $6,100, starting in 33rd, 17th in single lap, 27th in 5 lap. He's got a 25th place average finish for the 5 races we're comparing to, and a 23.4 average finish. I mean, his stats are almost identical to Michael McDowell's. 23.4, Michael McDowell is at a 25.2 with about the same amount of starts. And his practice speeds were, honestly, a lot like Michael McDowell's. So AJ's got more spots to get. The problem is the days that AJ has practiced well, qualified well, he's stayed up front well. The days where AJ has not practiced well, has not qualified well, he's stayed there also. So AJ kind of seems to be the one that where he starts is where he finishes. If he gets to his average finish of 24th, that's only 27.45 points. He's going to need to get to 17th, 42.45 points at 6,100. Might play. 15th would probably do better. So, can AJ get to a top 15? Sure. I mean, average finish is not there. Practice speeds were not there. But so AJ would be a play of, and typically the problem is AJ usually finds, whenever there's a wreck, AJ seems to find it. So I would put him in that same ballpark of the melee guys. Not that AJ's causing the melee necessarily, he just always seems to have the bad luck in finding it. So I'll have some AJ. I don't think it's super contrarian. I don't think it's super chalky. I think it's just kind of middle of the road. He's probably going to be somewhere like 10, 12, 13% owned. So I don't think it's anything super duper to do. I think it's just a play. I think he's going to be probably 8 to 10, maybe 12% owned. So kind of middle of the road. I don't know. It's probably where I'll end up falling on him. I'll probably have him in 4 to 6 lineups out of 40. If I get up to 80 lineups tomorrow, which I kind of doubt I will, I would probably have him in 8 to 10. So still in that 10% range. Shane Van Gisberging, $60 or $6,000. Tricky triangle. Road course guys, sometimes, I mean, it's just a tricky track. And I honestly, SVG's got the win. If he gets an opportunity, he'll get some stage points. But other than that, he's locked in. What he really needs to do is get locked. He needs to get stage points. He needs to end up finishing top 25s and just start inching his way better in points. So I'm not expecting a whole lot from SVG. It's going to be a day of just go out and figure it out. I don't think he gets. I mean, it's the first time he's going to be there. He was not super fast in practice. I don't like his starting spot. If he were starting 33rd, I might have some ownership, but I'm not interested, and I don't think a whole lot of people will be. So you want to be absolutely really contrarian, go and take an SVG. But I think you're going to probably have as much luck taking SVG as you do taking Cody Ware or even Brandon Poole. Zane Smith, 5,900, starting in 15th. This is a tough call. When Zane qualifies well, he ends up doing well, but typically when Zane qualifies well, he usually practices well. His practice speeds were not there. Family Man says starting 11th will hopefully scare enough people off of Jones to make him somewhat contrarian. You have McDowell, Dinger, Barry that are in the Jones price range, so hopefully. Yeah, I think out of that group, I think all three of those, McDowell, Dinger, and Barry, could easily pull ownership off of Jones. But I think it's once again, you have to build the storyline, and you have to build around what. And it's not that you can't take an 11th place start in a Denny Hamlin. So I just think you just need to build your lineups around a story, and you just have to figure out what that story is. And there's 150 different ways to run the story. And they all change and they all run different. You just got to sell yourself on one and dig into it and build your lineups around it. Since SVG won, does his team get a bonus in money to maybe make his car better? No, it's not a dumb question. Yes, so it's a little backwards. I mean, they got a pretty good payday because of the win. The purse at Mexico was something like $12 or $13 million, but it got spread a little bit more evenly because the travel costs were a lot more. The bonus comes at the end of the year. Now, Trackhouse has enough money. The problem is there's not enough high quality personnel out there right now to make SVG better. Trackhouse has what it has for right now. They've got Ross in the playoffs. They've now got SVG in the playoffs. Suarez is knocking on the door, fluctuating about being in the playoffs or out of the playoffs. He's going to need to win to get in. I think everybody at this point, it's a win to get in. If you don't have a win, you're not locked in. I don't care how many points you have. We're already at 10 winners, and we're at race 17 of 26. We've got 9 more races to go, and we've got Chicago, we've got Watkins Glen, we've got Sonoma, we've got Atlanta. Is Bristol in the playoffs? Anyone would know. He's going to Bristol. And we've got Richmond. So we've got a lot of tracks that have the potential to have more new winners. So, I mean, in all honesty, I don't know if SVG is safe with his one win. I think SVG needs to probably go out and get another one. And like I said, we've got Sonoma, Watkins Glen, and Chicago. Allmendinger could easily go get one of those wins. So there's one of the potentials. Eric Jones goes and gets a win tomorrow. Let's say you build that scenario, and Eric Jones gets the win tomorrow. Well, there's two. You're now down to 4 drivers left. And you've got Bristol and Atlanta, and I think Daytona, all left as wild cards. We easily could see, the probability is low, but we definitely could see a point to where if SVG doesn't go get a second win or get his points up, it's going to get real tight. But for Zane Smith, he never was better than average. He's qualified in 15th. The days when he has qualified kind of well up here, he's ended up finishing pretty well, but he's going to need to finish, even at 6,400, he's going to need to finish, let's say he needs to get to 42 points. What does he need to get to 42 points? 9th, 8th. So can Zane Smith make it to 8th? I mean, yeah. He doesn't have a whole lot of runs here. He's got one start at Pocono, one start at New Hampshire, one start at Indy. So in his one start at Pocono is a 29th place finish. So coin toss him what he can do here. Let me know if I'm breaking up at all. My YouTube seems to be glitching a little bit. Who knows? So yeah. I mean, this is one of those. Do you think Zane Smith, with no indications, gets a 8th place finish? If he does, he potentially is there. Yes, it's in the play. Yes, it's in the playoffs night race. Oh, sweet. Okay, so Bristol is in the playoffs. But either way, I know Daytona's not. I know Atlanta's not, because Atlanta's next weekend. And you still have the Chicago race, which seems to be kind of a wild card at this point. So, yeah, I mean, we could easily see 16 or 17 winners. We see 17 winners, and SVG is potentially on the outside looking in. Because one of those winners could be Brad Keselowski, who's actually further down in points than SVG now. That's insane. Noah Gragson, $5,700, starting in 17th. He's got a 28.3 average finish for Pocono. Practice speeds actually were not bad. His practice speeds were better than Zane Smith's. And he's starting in 17th. Noah's due. This kid's just had really, really crappy luck. But if we take his average finish of 26, it's not a good day for Draftkings points for Noah or for himself. I mean, he's kind of there. He's going to need to finish in the top 10. Is it possible? Maybe. Big maybe. So, Todd Gillen ended up spinning in qualifying. I don't think he hit anything. So I don't think a whole lot of damage. Even if he does have to drop to the rear, he's only going to fall back 4 or 5 spots. So 5,600. He was 32nd in single lap, 26th in 5 lap. 18.8 average finish for the 5 races we're comparing to, but at Pocono, a 25.3. Let's look at his practice speeds. I mean, a lot like Noah's and a lot like Zane's, kind of right down the middle, kind of average. It's starting in 32nd, there's a little bit more room to go up. So if you're potentially looking at place differential, Todd Gillen's a better play than Noah or Zane, which is going to give more ownership towards Todd Gillen. Makes it a little easier to get to that 42-point margin, because all he's going to need to do is get to 14th. 16th. Yeah, 16th. So where Todd Gillen, all he's got to do is get the 16th. Noah Gregson's got to get into the top 10. That makes it a little easier to handle with Todd Gillen having to get up there. Justin Haley starting in 22nd. I honestly think he outkicked his coverage. I mean, Pocono has not been a good track for him. 26.3. He's got some tracks where he's done better, and this one just isn't it. And his practice speeds were above average for the most part, or worse than average. He's just starting too far up. I just don't. I think at best he gains 2 spots and he gets a 25.9, but that's just not going to cut it. Austin Dillon starting in 16th. Once again, this is kind of the same type of scenario. He's a 20.4 average finish. He's never finished in the top 10, and he's starting 16th. And his practice speeds were not even average for the most part. So I don't have a whole lot of interest. Even if he gets to 12th, it's 35 points. I mean, at 5,300, it's potential. Potentially. I mean, starting in 16th, that's tough. I mean, honestly, I like the Austin Dillon play more than I like the Justin Haley play, but I like the Todd Gillen play more than I like any of those 3. John Hunter Nemechek is so interesting. This is kind of one of those sneaky, weird plays. Because if you think Eric Jones can finish well, John Hunter Nemechek could also finish well. Practice speeds were right down the middle of the fairway. Super consistent, super average. But he's if he falls to 6, it's 37 points. If he happens to lead 2 laps, which he might do. And at 5,200, he's... Hold on. I got somebody's price wrong. Is John Hunter 50... He's got to be 5,200. All right. I mean, this is a really, really interesting play because it doesn't take a whole lot to get to 37th. If he can just hold and maintain, he's actually honestly there. And it becomes really sneaky. And if he can finish where he starts, 41 points. At 5,200, that's such a savings that you could potentially run 4 of those expensive guys, a John Hunter Nemechek, and maybe even an Austin Dillon. If Austin Dillon can get to... This is a scenario where you think Denny Hamlin goes out and leads 70 laps type of story. But let's say Austin Dillon can get a top 10 finally. Get him to 40 points. John Hunter Nemechek finishes in 4th, gets to 40 points. But you get a Denny Hamlin that goes out and dominates and leads 80 laps. Let's go up to Denny Hamlin real quick. Here's kind of the scenario that I build, at least in my head. Denny Hamlin, this is where a dominator really, the only time the dominator probably comes into play with this few of laps. Let's say he gets to 80 laps. That becomes 70. And now Ryan Blaney finishing in 8th at 57. Let's put this in to this and see what that ends up coming up with. So start with Denny, then we go to John Hunter at 5,200, an Austin. Oh, hold on. Yeah, an Austin Dillon starting in 16th. Now, can you run Blaney, Larson? Nope, you're down to 7,300. Yeah, it's just really tough to play any more than just 3 of the guys in the 10,000 range, even at 52 and 5,300. I mean, it's 7,300. Who do you have left? Cindric, Priest, Barry. You can play Barry. That I don't think anybody else is gonna. Well, maybe now that I've shown it, I would not think that this would be a very highly owned group of drivers because I don't think a whole lot of people are going to go after Nemechek and Dillon. Probably definitely not Nemechek. Nemechek might be lucky if he's 3% owned. All right, where were we? John Hunter. Because we're now past the 2-hour mark. I do this every time. Yeah, I think I'm going to hurry up so that way we can go watch Donald Trump. And Donald Trump finishes his... Donald Trump's the long-winded one, and he was done in less than 10 minutes. Full Custer, $5,100 starting in 5th. No way am I touching this. Not even close. Lightning does not strike twice in a week in the same spot, especially when practice speeds are like this. Nope, no way. Forget it. There's nothing here for me to even like. Next. You can play it if you want. I'm not interested in playing Ty Dillon. All right, Cole Custer. Ty Dillon starting in 27th. You could make an argument here at $5,000. It's not going to take him a whole lot. Can he get up to 20th? No, that doesn't quite cut it. 17th. 17th becomes close. 15th probably puts him in the ballpark. So Ty Dillon get up to a 15th and he's in play. Riley Herbst starting in 29th. His practice speeds actually were not bad. And one of these times, Riley Herbst is going to burn me or help me. Because I still occasionally play Herbst. And he's burned me more than he's helped me. But at $4,800, he definitely is in play. And I didn't change this number correctly. Starting in 29th, I mean, at $4,800, I mean, get the 20th? No, he's going to need to be a tick higher than that. 17th. So, I mean, a Riley Herbst in 17th or a Ty Dillon in 17th, take your poison. They could potentially help you get 3 or 4 of the expensive guys. And that's, I mean, we're not dumpster diving, but we are around the dumpster at this point. Cody Ware spun, had to go to a backup car. His practice speeds were crap. I'm not interested in Cody Ware. Even starting 36. Brendan Poole, I didn't even put him on here. He is failed tech a bazillion times. Half his team has been thrown out. He's going to have to do a drive-through penalty and start at the rear. I'm not even sure why they're even starting the race. If anyone says this is why you're the best, Mark, we can't just talk about the drivers that everyone else likes. You have to think outside the box. Top cheer, my friend. Well, you're welcome. And a lot of that has to do with we spend a lot of time, you and I, talking about these different scenarios a lot during race day. And I really need to get that Discord up and running so everybody else can join in on our fun little conversations. Because they end up pretty much translating to what we talk about here. So, either way, we are at the tail end, tempted to lock Byron. Think we'll avoid the bumps. Well, there's no real way to avoid the bumps. The question is, do you avoid the bumps being full throttle? That's the part that Kyle Busch has a trouble with. Byron's, in all honesty, Byron is probably a safer play than Larson. And that's coming from a Larson fanboy. So, probably not as safe as a Blaney play. But Byron's probably better at Pocono than Blaney. What's the average finishes for the two? Blaney average finish of 12.9. Byron average finish of 9.8. I think the Byron's more of a lock than the Blaney. And he's got more room to run starting in 31st. But remember, he's very, very, he's going to be very chalky. He might be 45 to 50% owned. So just, if you're going to be with Byron, just take him as the free square and move on. So if he ends up having a decent day. If he doesn't, then you're going to be right along with everybody else and not making any money. All right, guys I like, guys I don't like. Well, we've talked about most of it. So, I mean, Larson's definitely in play. Bell's in play. Hamlin's in play if you think Hamlin's going to win or lead a ton of laps and finish top 3. Chase Elliott ends up becoming a little bit sneaky because everyone else up here in this price range has a better place differential. Once we kind of get down to Bubba Wallace, Josh Berry, you kind of have to decide which one of those. You don't decide which one. You can play both of them. But just remember that they're going to be chalky. This whole grouping up here probably will end up being somewhat chalky. I don't think actually Ross will end up being chalky. Kyle Busch may not be. I don't think so. McDowell probably won't be that chalky. Gilliland could be, but since he spun in practice or spun in qualifying, it may not. Now this whole thing, this ranking system is all based on my algorithm, so it literally takes into account the 5 races we're comparing to. It takes the last 10 races of similar style tracks. It takes in the last 10 races in this season, so Mexico back through whatever, Martinsville or whatever the last 10 races were this season. It takes into account starting position, practice, qualifying, and all those different things. And that's how I kind of come up with this ranking system. So trying to figure out what the ranking system is, that's what that is. Yeah, so I mean, my ranking system does not like Nemechek at all. I honestly think Nemechek potentially is a decent play. It's going to be very contrarian, which is kind of why I like it. So I think out of the Hocevar, Nemechek, Cole Custer, guys that probably shouldn't be qualifying in the top 10, but did, I think Nemechek probably might stand the best chance. Watch him go out and wreck half the field tomorrow at the start of the race, and I'll be like, well, I just got cussed out by a bunch of people who watch my show. Well, I didn't fix that picture at all. Oh well. We'll stop there. All right. Anybody else have any questions, thoughts, or concerns? I appreciate everybody actually tuning in and staying in when the most popular guy in the world was speaking at 10 o'clock. I don't know if he's the most popular. Most well-known person in the world. I don't know. Let's all cross our fingers and hope that we all wake up tomorrow and we're not in World War III and we can actually watch a NASCAR race, because that would be great. Yeah, I'll try not to get political on here, but fingers crossed, everything works out. It's supposed to, right? We have a NASCAR race to watch. We've got College World Series to watch. We've got a NBA Finals to watch. I got grass to cut tomorrow. I know Family Man's got grass to cut tomorrow. He cuts grass on Sundays. All right. Either way, I appreciate you tuning in. 2 hours and 20 minutes in. Whew, God. Time flies when you're having fun. Thanks. Good luck. Let me know if you end up hitting. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe button. We will see everyone next Saturday for Atlanta. There is no practice. It's only qualifying. It will be a much shorter show, I promise, because I'm leaving town. Oh, you know what I got to cut? Yeah, that grass. So do I. I might wait till Tuesday or Wednesday because I'm going out of town for 8 days, 9 days. I may have to try to push further so I don't have a jungle when I get back. Either way, cut the grass. We'll chat tomorrow. Anybody else need or want to pop any information, you can always send a message through the YouTube chat, and I'll get back with you. Or you can send me an email, mark@racinginthedraft.com. Good luck tomorrow. See everyone next Saturday for, has to be a shorter version because I'm driving to Florida the next morning. So, and I'll still have to set lineups afterwards. See you later. Good night.
to life.
He still takes the field? Yep. Love it. Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W, so gotta be around the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checkered. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker pass, baby! Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the best car here, bud. Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job. Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend. What a weekend. Good job.